In the last 17 months, we have learned a lot about defending ourselves from the Wuhan virus. But we still don't know how it originated. We still don't have clear answers on what led to this outbreak. How did the pandemic begin in China? Did the virus come from a laboratory? The evidence is mounting and America wants to investigate. The president has given the marching orders. American intelligence agencies will probe this. Joe Biden wants them to quote-unquote redouble efforts to determine the origin of the Wuhan virus, and he wants a report within 90 days. Last night, the US president released a statement. It's on your screens now. This is the most expansive revelation by the US government on the question of the origins of the virus. So what does America know? This is what it says. In March this year, Joe Biden asked the US National Security Advisor to prepare a report about the origins, a summary of what they know so far, and the most up-to-date analysis. And Biden asked his team to share what they knew about both the theories, a natural origin of the virus and a lab leak. Remember, America still holds it as a possibility, the lab leak, the possibility that the virus may have come out of a laboratory, perhaps accidentally leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They've not ruled it out. What the US does not have is evidence to reach a final conclusion. So allow me to quote from the statement. It says, as of today, the US intelligence community has coalesced around two likely scenarios, but has not reached a definitive conclusion on this question. And here their current position, here is their current position, I'm quoting, while two elements in the IC leans towards the former scenario and one leans more towards the latter, each with low or moderate confidence. What does that mean? It means that the United States intelligence community, IC, is split. One half believes that the virus is natural in its origin, and the other half does not rule out a lab leak. So they will investigate both angles together. Joe Biden has now asked them for a definitive conclusion, and he wants China to answer some tough questions. In a statement, Biden said, and I'm quoting again, as part of that report, I have asked for areas of further inquiry that may be required, including specific questions for China. The United States believes Beijing was not transparent with the investigators who went to Wuhan earlier this year.
We've been pretty vocal, right? This administration, we didn't have access. China wasn't transparent enough. We have been saying that for a very long time, that China needed to provide more access to the lab, cooperate more fully with the scientific investigators, and we don't think that they have met that standard.
China needed to provide more access to the lab. That statement sums it up. The United States believes that the lab leak angle needs to be explored further. And if you've been following our coverage in recent days, we have been telling you about the growing circumstantial evidence that needs to be explored and investigated. Number one is the claim that researchers at the Wuhan lab fell sick in November 2019. Apparently, they were admitted to hospital. This was before China officially reported its first confirmed infection. November 2019. The WHO team wanted raw data to better understand the early days of the outbreak, and it's a request that China refused. The second point that we have been focusing on is the research that was going on inside the Wuhan laboratory. The Wuhan Institute of Virology has been studying bat coronaviruses for years now. Did the Wuhan lab have any sample of this particular virus before the pandemic began? This is the question that also needs to be answered. And China will have to face these tough questions again. But China is already crying foul. It is deflecting all demands for any further investigation. Today, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent Zhao Lijian to face the press, the same diplomat who is known as the wolf warrior in chief, also the man who floated a conspiracy theory last year. Zhao Lijian said last year that the virus had come from America and not from Wuhan. And when he said this, the Chinese state distanced itself from those statements, those comments. But today, from the podium of China's foreign ministry, the very same man, Zhao Lijian, revived his conspiracy theory, and he said investigators should first probe the Fort Detrick lab in America.
The US ranks highest in the world with more than 33 million confirmed cases and 600,000 deaths from COVID-19. Instead of deeply reflecting on itself, the US is trying to blame China. I would like to ask what is their intention and where is their conscience? I also want to stress that the Fort Derrick base is suspicious, and the US still has more than 200 other biological laboratories spread around the world. How many secrets are they hiding?
Then Zhao trained his guns on the US intelligence community. He brought up the story of how America invaded Iraq. Remember, the US government under George Bush insisted that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. They invaded Iraq on the pretext of destroying those weapons. Well, they found none, and they held themselves to the oil wells of Iraq. Why is China raising all of this now? To discredit America and its intelligence agencies.
I would also like to stress one final point. The motive and purpose of the US-driven investigation, relying on intelligence, is crystal clear. In fact, US intelligence has a notorious track record, as the world has learnt a long time ago. Its masterpieces include the test tube of laundry powder, which was cited as the evidence of weapons of mass destruction, and the staged White Helmets video to launch strikes on Syria. Former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo even boasted, quoting, "I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. We had entire training courses." It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment. How can anyone trust the findings of an investigation conducted by such an intelligence organization with no credibility to speak of?
That's how China has been trying to shift attention and blame for the pandemic, questioning the credibility of others. The WHO report that was co-authored by Chinese scientists practically ruled out the lab leak. But the WHO chief, Dr. Tedros, refused to accept that conclusion. Now, America is investigating this angle. If China was hoping that the WHO-led investigation would kill the lab leak debate, the compromised probe has only given it more momentum. We'll be tracking this. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.